How's everybody doing? Let's hear from you guys a little bit here.
Good.
All right.
Good.
Who said good first? Darla?
It was probably
Storm.
it was probably a tie.
All right. Hi, Mary. Yeah, well, thank you guys so much. Again, we still have a couple minutes here for people to sign in, but I've really enjoyed this class a lot. I've learned a lot, and you guys have been exceptionally generous as I've learned everything and not been too judgmental as I try to figure out the different screens and how everything's working. Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about kind of what are some of your favorite takeaways from this. I posted a question on the Facebook page, but that's always important for me to kind of see, what are parts that maybe I glossed over a little bit, or what are the parts that maybe I could spend more time with, or, what did you find most useful? What is the one main thing you're going to take from this class and utilize in your actual painting exercises as you go forward? Yes, Linda.
I really loved learning about the no-tan and no-tanizer approach.
Right.
I actually use that on the painting I'm working on now because I didn't like something about it and I was having trouble figuring out what I didn't like. And it was that line of trees had some funny shapes in it. And when I did the no-tanizer of the painting, I could see more clearly that was off. And, you commented on my current status and noted that I needed to lighten the background, which I also saw when I looked at that no-tanizer. So not only helpful in starting a composition, I love the way you taught us how to crop and get a better composition out of a photo, but then to really look at the values and use it as I'm painting is being very helpful.
That's a super great point. Yeah, and I don't usually use the no-tanizer so much when testing my paintings, but what I will do is use the black and white on my camera, and that just helps break down the values. And that's where I will find out, are things floating, are things getting lost, are things not receding into space as I hope they would. So yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that very much. Anybody else? What's kind of the main things you've pulled?
I just have to agree with that. Learning how to lay out the design, that's fundamental, and that has really helped a lot.
And your painting can't be successful. I just want you guys to remember that you can't paint your way out of a bad design. So as kind of unartistic and, left side, right, I can never remember which side is supposed to be the art side of your brain. But it's everything. It's, if it helps you to think about it, it's like 90% of your painting is design. I mean, you could leave it in black and white. If it reads well as a no-tan or as a 3-value study, and you like the design and it flows well, you're so much further ahead already. So yeah, Mary.
Yeah, I'll tell a brief Michael Orwick story, because the first course I ever took for art was with you several years back. And you remembered the birds, and I know why you remember the birds, because I kept changing it. And I kept flipping it and moving it closer and farther away. Finally, you walked up to me because I was sitting in the back of the class, and you said, if you ever decided what you're going to paint, I think you do a pretty good job. And it stuck with me that I needed to spend more time on the design.
Right.
And this class really brought it home to me that once you have the design, you can flow with the colors. And once you've looked at it in a black and white photo and you see the values, then you have the freedom of color. But I was trying color too early to resolve all my problems.
And it's so automatic. Everybody does that. I don't think I've ever met a painter that wasn't drawn in initially by color. I mean, that's so exciting to us. It's so dramatic. And so we put it at the, as the most important thing, but it really isn't. And it took me probably a year or two of painting professionally to really, figure that out and put it into use. and realized that I was actually just trying to color my way out and paint my way out of bad designs. And when I took that step back and used the black and white photos to test myself, another great way is holding it up in the mirror, because it's opposite. So you'll see, man, it's really, lopsided, or my horizon line looks right this way, but when I flip it into the mirror, another great way, a lot of artists will actually have a mirror. So if this, where's my hand? If this was my easel, on the other side of my studio, a lot of people will have a mirror there, so they can literally just turn around and see their painting in the mirror. A little trick I learned from one of my instructors named Thomas Kitts was, if you have your iPhone, oops, I need to get it to dark screen here, and you keep it on dark screen, you can actually, let's see if I can do this here. You can actually hold it up like this with a dark screen, and it works as a mirror. So I can actually see all of you guys on the camera there. So that's just a really quick, easy way, especially like if you're out plein air painting or something like that. So that's just a kind of simple way to do it. But anyways, yeah, thank you so much for that, Mary. So we're quickly, for those who just joined, we're just quickly kind of rehashing the class a touch and going over kind of what were some of the main things that are going to stick with you and that you plan to implement. I know we learned a lot, and I showed you a lot of different ideas in this class. And so I don't expect that you'll all take all of that information and, incorporate it into your daily, weekly, whatever it is, painting regimen. But I'm hoping that some of these tools are really going to be useful to you. Just like I showed you guys a couple different ways to start a painting. Some of you are really going to say that the wiping away method was fantastic and really worked out. And others of you are just, yeah, it's a mess. It's doesn't make sense, and I'd prefer to sketch it out. And there's no wrong or right way. It's just, when I learned that wiping away method, it made so much sense to me, and I wasn't taught it in any of my classes or workshops even. And so I love to share it. And for, maybe 50% or 20% of you, it probably will make a big difference. For others of you, not so much. So anyways, I would love to hear from one more person, kind of what's, and I wrote the question down on the, I'm going to go ahead and go to Michelle here in just a second. I wrote the question down on, and I can rewrite it here, on the top of the Facebook page. Go ahead, Michelle. I'd love to hear what your thoughts were on the class.
I have learned so much in this class. I can't even begin to tell you. And so I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, doing the design, I mean, the focus on design is, I've never taken real lessons. I've just dabbled literally and figuratively a lot. I love the wipe away method. And I've pardon?
I said we need to think of a better name for it, but yeah, exactly. The wipe away method, exactly.
Yeah. No, I love it, and I signed up for the color class. Can't wait. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. And I think that, even when I put design and composition into my titles of my class, I instantly turn a lot of people off, just because they're like, oh, that's not the fun part of painting. I want to get to the fun part, the brushwork and the color and the bravura, kind of showy stuff. But I think you guys all would agree with me that design is just that important. And it's something that I have to remember all the time. And I'm actually not able to forget, because every time I try to forget about it or think I'm forgetting about it, I get smacked down, and the realities of it all come back, and I'm having to rework an unsuccessful painting. So painting is fun, fixing is not. A painting can be done in an hour or in 30 hours. And a lot of times the 30 hours are not painting, it's fixing. So, and it's not a fun 29 hours of it. So if we can set ourselves up for success and build a structure that we can, a sound structure, the design, the composition, that we can then get crazy with the color and, get into our more intuitive side of painting, I really am always thinking about something called flow. And that's where you kind of lose yourself in painting. I'm sure you guys have all experienced that if you've painted long enough, that you've had times where literally hours go by and you haven't noticed. You're just in the painting. You're kind of one with it. And it's not like you're overthinking. Things are just kind of working out for you. That does not happen all that often, but I'm constantly trying to figure out ways that I can get into that state more, because I believe that that's where the magic happens. And for a large part, it's about pushing ourselves, but not too much. It's about incremental steps. It's about learning, experimenting, but within kind of a controlled format where we're focusing on something new, we're pushing ourselves, but it's not like now I'm painting, you know, super involved, hardcore paintings. And so that's where the magic is for me, as far as when I'm learning the most, when my paintings are the most successful, is when I'm pushing myself, but not well out of my knowledge. I'm painting kind of just ahead of where I'm comfortable. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's true for everybody, but there's times where, let's say I've had kind of a rough morning or a bad day, or you know, things aren't quite working out, where I will return back to the canvas and completely paint what I know, paint what I'm comfortable with. And for me, that's my backlit trees, my sunsets, my flowing creeks, my marshes, things that I'm really comfortable with, design elements that I, you know, when I go for walks and hikes that I'm attracted to and I go to. You guys are all going to have your own things. That may be your cat, that may be your garden, that may be whatever it is, Mount Hood or whatever park that's near you, that you return to over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with that either. And even within those very comfortable paintings, I'm still experimenting a little bit. I'm still pushing something a little bit. I'm still hoping for kind of those aha moments and those pleasant surprises. That's where maybe I will try a little more experimentation with color, or a little more experimentation with my lighting effects and different things. So on that note, actually today, you guys, I was hoping to, if anybody wants me to, take a look at a couple paintings on the our Facebook page and just give some feedback. And then I wanted to go over to the farm painting that we've all kind of been working on, or most of you. I know some of you painted other scenes, which is fantastic. I don't have much left on that. So what I was hoping to do, time allowing, is to do a very quick run through. In fact, I may even do 2 paintings at the same time and just kind of talk my way through them and show you very quickly. I'm hoping to do them both in about 35, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And that's something that you'll have this final hour of class to reflect upon and look back to. I don't expect you guys to paint that fast. In fact, I don't want you to paint that fast in the beginning. But what I'll be able to do is demonstrate 2 things: the whole class, everything we've learned, and I'll quickly, you know, walk and talk my way through it. The second thing is something that I got a couple questions on throughout the class and I've never addressed, is painting wet into wet and not letting it dry. You know, especially for you guys that paint outdoors, or that literally know, man, I've got 2 hours to paint this week and I'm not coming back to this. You know, I just want to have some fun. How do we paint wet on wet and not make such a big mess? How do we not mush it all together and turn it all to gray and brown? Kim likes it. All right, good. So everybody's down with that. When I set myself up like this, in fact, I don't know if I've ever done 2 paintings in front of the class. Have I, Mary? I think I've done a lot of 1 painting. And so I'm just going to pull it out of my head. Like I said, I know creeks, I know marshes, I know trees, I know sunsets, and I'm going to just use the same colors that we have on the palette that you guys picked last week, which are the, I hope I remember correctly, titanium white, of course, yellow ochre, Indian yellow, French ultramarine, and the red, was it a cadmium red or I think it was quinacridone red?
Yeah, it was quinacridone.
Okay, great. So I will show you that time allowing. So let's spend the first half hour. I would love to talk about 3 people's paintings. So I'm just going to go to the recent media on this page. And I'm going to go to share screen, you guys, and we're going to go over to the Facebook page. Actually, let me just write down who here would like me to discuss a painting that I need it, and I need it to be, I have been posted. Linda, Mary, and okay. I can do 4 probably.
Susan.
Michelle.
Susan,
Michelle?
Mary, and Michelle. And again, I've tried to comment on everybody's paintings. Did you post yours?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think which ones I saw recently. Denise, did you post yours on there? Oh, Denise, you're frozen. Sorry. Could you say it again?
Yeah, my internet signal is a little unstable.
Okay. Denise, I don't know if I saw yours on the Facebook page.
I put it on there last night.
Oh, okay. Is it the farm?
No, it's a sunset.
Okay. The first kind of it's the underpainting?
I put down the first underpainting and then the adjustment to it and then the color one.
Oh,
It should be
okay.
3.
Oh yeah, look at that tree. Yeah, you blew it way up. Great. Okay. So I'm gonna try my best to get to everybody here. I'm gonna do share screen and take you guys over to the internet on our Facebook page. And I will leave the Facebook page up for a while. I don't know, I don't ever have to take it down, I guess. So that you can refer to it, find the videos through it, and the references. If you guys are painting from my references going forward, you're more than welcome. Please don't sell them, make them for personal use and learning, just because I'll be painting from them and hopefully selling them. I actually got asked to judge an art competition locally one time, and there was 2 of my paintings repainted in there, and I found it very interesting because they were for sale, and so that was an interesting conversation. But the person was a new painter and didn't really know kind of that stuff. But it's fine to copy people's paintings. In fact, it's a fantastic way to learn, and it's great to paint from any references you find. But just know that references and paintings are copyrighted, and you can get yourself in some trouble if the artist is not as nice as I am and decides to come after you for whatever reason. Plus, it just can put a little black mark on your art name as you're coming up. So feel free again to, paint from all those things. Just make them for your own learning and reference. And what I always do too is, because I still copy other artists' paintings, I'll do little tiny sketches of them and stuff, just trying to work out what they're doing, that, how did they do this? What's their design that I am not understanding, or their colors. And I'll just write a note on the back of it, what it's based on, who the artist or photographer was. And yeah, don't sell them. All right. Share.
Michael, this is Kim. Just for consideration, not necessarily for this session today, I'd be really interested in a pretty in-depth conversation, even if it's just one-on-one. I don't know if anybody else is interested in this, on the business side of being an artist.
Okay, that's yeah. I appreciate that. We'll have to think about how to do that best. Okay, so hopefully you guys are seeing, well, not my Facebook, that's not what I want, or Photoshop. Share screen, I want okay, so everybody's seeing the design class there?
Yes.
And remember, you can pin my screen if you want to. Let's see who we have at the top here. Where's the name? Whose is this one?
Michelle.
Michelle. All right. Nice. Look at that nice size. It's reading really well. Rolling back. Just kind of
Yeah, I
nice.
commented that my farmer likes to trim her trees and shape her road.
Yeah, it's nice and clean for sure. I think we can go to, oh, I should just go this way. There we go. Yeah, the glare is always tough. I had just sent out a commission and I could not get a good photo of it. What's going on here? Because of the glare. I think it's reading really well. Your design's nice. You could see this line here could slightly be increased if you wanted it to lead in a little more. When I squint my eyes at it, these darks back here are reading really dark and really warm. The far back trees. And that was an issue for a number of painters. I know Linda and I talked about that a little bit already. You got these nice, beautiful darks under here. Those bring that back. And then you have some really quite dark and again, so dark and warm. Those are the two components that want to come towards the viewer typically. You can always play with that and experiment and push it. But as a general guideline or rule or thought process, the darker and the warmer, the more they want to come forward towards the viewer. So if we were to cool these shapes down a little bit, I think that would really help push these back. Cool and possibly lighten or gray down a little bit would really help push those back. Nice job giving a sense of perspective here at the base of these trees on the right. Mine are all in a line and it's a little bit uncomfortable for me, so I'm going to have to do something to push those back. Here's something I haven't talked about yet, and that's kind of the sky holes. I know these aren't necessarily sky, it's field holes. But I would like you to very quickly take a look at these two shapes here. And what do you notice about them?
They match.
Yeah, matchy match. So just be aware of that to keep those. A lot of times I do my sky holes first with Q-tips, and I have to be really careful that I just don't make the same mark over and over and over and have like what I call little wormholes dug through my worm trails dug through my paintings, because the Q-tip just makes that one mark, right? It's just one shape. Or if you're using, one brush and touching it all the same, not, adjusting how you're holding the brush, you can do that. So just kind of be aware of that. That's kind of a thing I'll do from time to time, is just look through and make sure like I don't have too many, replicating shapes, like my trees are, and you're not, I'm just showing you where they could be. And it happens to me all the time where like my back row of trees will just be, the same clumps, the same half domes over and over and over. So I look for those. I look for repetition of form where I don't want it. And usually that's in the organic things. But you said, you get this nice organized farmer. Maybe he's going through and carving out everything just so. Red Barn is sitting back there nicely. Everything leads back to there. It's a nice focal area. It's a great spot to kind of have it. What questions do you have, Michelle?
I think when I'm doing the dark, in the beginning, the shapes, that's where I seem to have trouble, particularly in this case with trees or bushes, kind of seeing then where I'm going to do details or how I'm going to divide the trees when they are all one big shape, and especially if the image is kind of vague. So then I end up shaping them similarly, to my regret.
Okay, great question, great point. You can always have more references. So you can go look through a magazine or online and find trees that are interesting. They don't need to be the trees from this photo. And you can pull information from anywhere. There's a lot of times when I'm plein air painting and looking, let's say west, but I will turn towards the north just to pull out some colors from over there and trees from over there. You know what I mean? Even when I'm plein air painting, I'm not replicating exactly. Always using my artistic license. So when you don't know the answer, you can go to Google, right? I mean, we use Google for everything. Go to Google and look up images, say, trees, say fields, say, and that's where I pulled some of the references, like when I put the rows of lavender in the, where my edits got too crazy, was I was just looking because I didn't have rows that matched the design I had. So I just kind of looked up fall flowers because I figured it's kind of fall with the dry fields. So I wanted flowers that could exist in that time frame, that season. And yeah, so you're always welcome. I mean, you did add a red barn. That's not there. So, you're using your artistic license. Just don't hinder yourself. Don't ever put yourself in a box, and never make unnecessary rules when you're painting. Okay. It's amazing to me how many times I come around and kind of like, why didn't you just look up a reference for that? Why did you put that sky in? If you hate that sky, why didn't you put a different sky in? And people are like, you can do that? You can do anything. This is about the image and about you having fun and a good relationship with that image. So yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. Great job.
Thank you.
Really is nice. One little point here is on the turn here. It's a little severe. I noticed that sharp corner. And
How do I fix that?
rounding it just a touch, just because it's the only sharp angle in your road. And you could leave it. It's not horrible or anything, but it does draw my attention slightly. Great.
Thank you.
Oh, the other thing is if you have sky holes here and here, you could take them up just a touch, like bring some of the mountain behind, maybe, if you wanted to. Anyways, fantastic. Lovely. I hope you like your painting. One more quick thing I'm just noticing is this cloud sits right on top of these these trees. You see that tangent? I know it's a little bit blue, so you might just want to lower the cloud if you get back to it a little more or something. You just don't want them to be just sitting right on top of each other. Okay, let's see what's next. Mary. All right. Is this the one you wanted to talk about, Mary? You need to hold down the space bar, Mary.
Yes, please.
This is the one. Okay, great. Great job. Complicated scene, interesting perspective. Kind of taking you back. Yeah, there's a nice little kid running ahead of his mom there. Is this the actual crop of the painting?
Approximately.
Okay. I'm really drawn towards the action here and the contrast between, you got the blue here, which is nice, that kind of, balances over here. I'm really drawn to this, and it's super close to our edge.
That's because I cropped it. You are right. There's actually about an inch. I'm having trouble getting the angle correct on this because of the reflection.
And that, and it can totally work like that. You can totally push and pull. I mean, that's the fun thing about design. But I just want, when things are done that are pushing the envelope, as it were, like putting it's not necessarily a focal point, or it doesn't need to be, but it kind of is, right? Most of you guys would have to admit that's kind of the draw. It's got the contrast, it's got the movement, it's framed by light, darks framed by lights.
So bring it in.
Yeah, and if you have an inch here, it may be the case. Again, you can. If you guys look at other people's paintings, you'll notice that people are breaking the rules of design and composition all the time. Sometimes to fantastic, amazing, I would have never thought of that results, but they're doing it on purpose. So that's the one thing. I just don't want it to be, well, that it was in the photo or, you know, this or that. So anyways, nice. So this line takes us up. These figures in basically whenever somebody or an animal or something is facing a certain way, our eye will go that way with them. So that, and the little kid, I mean, I love the little lean on that kid too, just kind of teetering forward just a touch. The nice flow of the woman's, I guess burqa or whatever the name is for the big flowing outfits. Beautiful. So that, again, it goes here, here, and then my eye goes back to there because a lot of times you can have implied line. You don't have to draw every line that's there. Our eye will go from there to there, and we're just like, okay, and now we're almost up to here, right? You guys see that?
Mhm.
And then we have this nice angle here, and then, you know, it's got a lot of really nice things going on, design wise. As far as paint application, Mary, I've talked to you again in the past about you have a very distinctive way of painting. And I'm not exactly positive how much of that you want to hang on to because it's kind of your signature, and how much of it you would like to not hang on to. I don't know what the right way to say it is. You are a mixer. Everything gets very soft and mixed. You know, your edges are oftentimes quite soft. In fact, I don't see a hard, crisp edge in this whole painting. Some edge, oh, maybe here. And that's the case with most of your paintings. And that can be fine. I mean, there is a number of fantastic painters that paint very airy. And, you know, we think Monet did a lot of this kind of mixing with this paint, where you see the layers being built up. It's almost like you could see the ghosts of the underpainting and the middle painting, and you're building up these layers, and that can be really fantastic. I just don't know if maybe something you can experiment with going forward is some areas that aren't that. And that will make, when it is done, a little more special. So you could,
Michael, if you don't mind my saying so, my question to you was going to be that I am a bit frustrated with my art because I want sharper edges sometimes, and I'm a lefty, and I'm finding the I lean on the brush for mixing because I find these palettes are for, or the what do you call those things? The
easel.
The thing that you mix paint with, the palette knife, is biased toward right-handed people. Have you ever heard of a left-handed? You wouldn't think so, but I have trouble with their angles, and I end up getting frustrated with them and dropping them. But I would like stronger edges, and I was hoping in the next class to work with that.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. So I'm guessing if you look through your paintbrushes that they're 70 to 80% filbert brushes. Do you have flat brushes, flat tops?
I lean toward the flat ones, and
Oh, you do?
but probably not flat enough. I don't know. But I end up mixing with this one a lot.
Can you hold it a little closer, please?
I'm not sure where I am on the screen, but here.
Okay, so yeah, that's the brush I would suggest. So I'm curious then that you're getting such organic looking brush strokes and not kind of a more flat edge. There's another thing I imagine that you're doing, and that's called dabbing.
Okay.
I would like you to start putting your brush down and leaving it until the brush stroke is done. Then picking up your paintbrush, wiping it clean a little bit. It doesn't need to be, you know, super clean, and then reloading the brush. So each time you put the brush down, it's 1, maybe 2 brush strokes.
Okay.
And then I want you to, you are very good at seeing a lot of information and things. I would like you to simplify where you can simplify. Like this sky, for instance, you've got pink, blue, green, yellow, orange, all in this little passage.
Yeah.
Awesome. Again, Monet did so much of this. It's called optical mixing. And you're going to get back to this. This is obviously in your nature.
Mhm.
But just as we're working on this other thing, which is going to be a little bit difficult of a challenge, look for maybe 2 or 3, not just 2 shifts, like within this big wall. When you can, try to kind of simplify it. Look for the bigger shapes. And that's just going to be a challenge. It's going to be uncomfortable. I expect there to be some swearing under your breath with my name at the end of it. And that's natural. As far as a left-handed palette knife and right-handed palette knife, you are correct. I had never in my life thought of that and wouldn't even have thought that was a thing. That sounds to me like saying that butter knives are left-handed or right-handed.
They are.
What?
Butter knives are right-handed. They're biased. You have to use them upside down.
Man, okay. I don't know. I think
There's
you
an
gotta-
invention waiting to happen there.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a business opportunity, Mary. Weird. I don't know what to do with that. I have never in my life heard it or thought it. So thanks for that. Put that in my brain.
But clearly other left-handed artists must have been able to figure it out, but it
Yeah.
has been a problem for me.
Hang on one second. I got like 1,000 palette knives. I'm just gonna grab a couple here.
They even have sharper edges on one side than the other.
Oh, you know what? With that, I simply take my knife sharpeners and sharpen both blades way down, like so much that I cut myself with them when I'm not careful.
Michael, what's your preferred size of your palette knife?
Like I said, I have like 100 of them. I just buy them big and cheap and then sharpen them, and then I'll also put really strong glue into the handles to save them. I don't really have a favorite size. It's like if I'm mixing a small area, I use a small knife. If I'm mixing, I don't use my palette knives enough in painting, even though a couple of my favorite paintings I ever did were with palette knife. It's just daunting to me. And I guess it's like some of my favorites are done in palette knife, and then all my worst paintings are done in palette knife. So it's a big.
So this whole sharpening the edge thing is a revelation to me because I'm frustrated trying to pick the paint up.
Yeah, sharpen them.
Yeah.
You can just use a little, one of those little handheld ones that goes back and forth.
Yeah.
People use grinders. And what's great is it really helps you to clean your palette at the end of the day. But again, be careful. They get so sharp so fast. You also want to keep them very clean. I share my supplies with my daughter, and she's an acrylic painter, and she's a messy acrylic painter. Meaning that I'm always walking around putting caps back on paint and picking up dry brushes. We had to have a lot of talks about my expensive brushes not being used for acrylic paints because oil paints do not like to go back and forth. They will get crazy. So we have acrylic brushes, watercolor brushes, and oil brushes, and never shall they meet except for on rare occasions. So palette knives, I'm constantly having to clean them. What I do is, I'm gonna unshare screen real quick, is I get the big glass scraper. That's how I clean my palette. I think I showed you guys that, right? This doesn't actually have a blade on it, but imagine it had the big razor blade, and you could get the small 1-inch size. They're great too. Just I always paint on glass, so it makes cleaning up much easier. But I will do the same thing. Everything's in reverse. With my palette knife, I just do the same thing, clean off. And you can see this one is not clean. In fact, almost none of them are clean right now. But again, I don't paint with them very often. I like all the different sizes. I really need to push myself to learn palette knife painting. I should probably take a class or a course that forces me to do that. It's just that I'm at the point where I need most of my paintings to sell to maintain my crazy lifestyle. Just kidding. But to feed my family and buy more paint. And so again, it's just a big risk for me, I feel like. So, and I'm doing okay with paintbrushes, but I would love to learn palette knives. I actually don't really like paintings that are just palette knife, but I very much like paintings that are a mix. And that's just personal preference. All right, I'm gonna go back over to. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to you too. And if when we start the class, I'll be using simplified strokes, minimal colors, and we'll appreciate any comments as we go along in the next session. Thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you. And on that, that is the thing I am working on this year. You're not going to see it today very much, but it is slowing down my brush strokes. I'm very scrubby and very animated when I paint, very mean to my paintbrushes. I am working on my word for the year or thought for the year in painting is deliberate brush strokes. And that is taking a breath, having intention. You know, these all sound like buzzwords, right? Being present, but taking a breath and actually thinking about, what do I want this brush stroke to do? What's the shape? Can I do it in one brush stroke with maybe a twist at the end or a flourish? You know, what amount of pressure do I want to put down? And you're going to see a lot of that in the speed paintings at the end. It's all about the pressure when you're trying to paint wet into wet. I'll start off with a lot of pressure, pushing my brush down, scrubbing it. And then as I build up my paint, the only way to put wet into wet is a really soft touch with a lot of paint if you want to build up. Otherwise, it's just going to blend and merge with the layer underneath. So there you go. Okay, Carrie, you didn't ask, are you even here? I don't know if I saw Carrie.
I'm here, Michael.
Okay, really quickly, I know you didn't ask for any critique. Well, too bad. Just kidding. This looks really nice. Very clean, beautiful. It's very structured. I think as you paint, if you wanted to start to soften some edges, you know, so everything's not so crisp, you can, but otherwise it's got a great style to it. The one thing I would do personally is probably lower this mountain. It's just so perfectly wanting to line up with these trees. I would just think about that. And then, I mean, it's not that they're exact tangents, but it's really close to wanting to be a tangent between the clouds, the trees, and the mountain. And you can tell me, you can say, you know what, that's intentional. It's got a cool design to it and it's got this nice shape. And I can say, yes, it does. Because look at that nice slide it makes. And that can be fine. And there's a lot of artists that do purposely line up things. I just want you to be aware of it, that it kind of has that little bit. This guy could probably move right here. So it's not exactly centered under the hole, under this opening. But again, these are just, that's me getting very nitpicky. I really like what you got going on. It's got a nice feeling. I like your opening. I like your sizes. I like your color differences. These darks back here, just like almost everybody else's, could get a little lighter and cooler if you want them to push. That'll make this tree come further in space, and it'll buy you a couple acres of the farm for free. You just get a little bit more real estate by just pushing that back. All right, sorry, I know you didn't ask, but just quick notes there.
No problem. It's still in progress. So I was going to let somebody else have their opportunity.
Well, you know
But
what?
thank
I
you.
love critiquing in progress because I know there's so many times when I get great feedback about my paintings, but I've in my head already decided it's done. And the last thing I want to do is go back and remix all those colors. And, you know, I'm like, I'm off to the next one. Thanks for that. I'll try to remember it. So sometimes getting it midway is actually more useful, at least for me. All right, Denise, we've got your design. I know this isn't where you ended up. I'm just going to quickly give a synopsis. And Denise is a longtime student of mine, good friend and a great painter. And I mean, she shows and sells, and so nice to have her in the class. And Great everything, beautiful colors. I love the sky. My only notes were that the trees, this grouping of trees could be a little bigger. It'll bring it forward compared to these. So you got small, medium, a little bit bigger, and then it goes back to smaller than this. So as trees come forward, if they're the same type, you can have all different types of shrubbery and everything else, but you can kind of see, and Denise is going to be a great example because watch what she does. She takes my advice and boom. And tell me that doesn't come way forward. Those go way back. I mean, you could even lower this a touch more, Denise, if you wanted to, the base. Really nice. But doesn't that just, I mean, let's just compare those again. It's not, there's nothing wrong, right? I mean, it's not a bad painting. It's got a lot of nice things going on. Bam. It really, all of a sudden, there's much more flow. There's much more movement. It feels like a real space. There's, you know, the breaking up of trees and branches, edges. Very nice. Look at that lost, beautiful edge back there. Denise, do you have anything to add at this point before I go to your color?
No, I just appreciated that you pointed that out.
I always just like to knock my students down a little bit. I don't want them ever getting too big of a head. So you're welcome. Just kidding. But nice job. I'll be curious if you bring your reflections down or what you do with these. Color. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Bam. Very fun. Nice sky. Your clouds are so much better than mine ended up. Well, mine haven't ended up where I stopped.
I think my sky holes are a little repetitive.
Possibly, you know, possibly a little unnecessarily busy. You could probably get rid of this whole area and that'll just make it get bigger. Here is a fun little note for you guys who are painting clouds and stuff, is you want to think of your sky as an inverse of your ground. And all I mean by that is, as we go towards the horizon line, see these trees are small, then they get to medium, and then they get to large. The same thing happens flipped upside down in clouds. Small clouds towards the horizon, and then they get bigger as they come towards us. It's not, you know, sometimes clouds are going straight up, sometimes they're going other directions, but if they are coming towards us, under, you know, it's a big dome up there, right? Then they're going to get bigger as they go up the scene. Okay, it feels really weird. You guys have all seen it where people will put in little puffy clouds, just a bunches of them, and they're all the same size. Boop, 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 boop. It just feels like wallpaper, right? Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Toy Story, they've got cloud wallpaper in there, and I always think of that. Or The Simpsons beginning has some clouds like that. So anyways, I noticed that. Oh, right here, Denise, this dark right here.
Yes.
Too dark compared to this. Let's lighten those up, and that'll push that back compared to here. The other thing is it's so close to the light source. Is your sun up here or down here?
It's up.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this probably, is that shooting just a light ray down? I don't think it would quite work like that. I would probably push this out a little bit. Then you can reflect it in the water, but I probably wouldn't have it quite shooting through the sky or on the ground so cleanly. It almost looks like you kind of pulled an eraser down and lightened everything. It's like that, but not so evenly. Grass and land won't reflect the sky like water does. It will reflect it, but not so cleanly, unless it was sopping wet. And then
Okay, I lost my internet connection for a minute.
uh-oh, you're really
I think what you said was not to have that area at the middle quite so bright.
here.
Yes.
No, I would just not have it be such a line coming down. It feels to me like you
Soften.
almost dragged an eraser down through everything. Soften this and then do the same on the grass. Soften that. You can have that reflection coming straight down in the water, but it wouldn't be the exact same on the grass and here in the sky, because that's reflecting probably what's up here.
Okay.
And then I said that this dark is a little too dark compared to here. I would lighten that. And then if this were your sun, it's going to be blasting out. And so it wouldn't be really dark right along this edge. if you've ever looked at photos where the sun is, really strong, it kind of destroys the edges of things that it's really close to. So you wouldn't
Yeah,
have this
that makes sense.
dark line, dark edge bumping into it. So
Should
this-
be more lighted up.
Yeah, a little lighter, a little warmer, lighten this up. Clouds, beautiful. This, lovely. If you want, you got cast shadows there. You could, bring your cast shadow here because again, I just kind of aim towards the light and my shadows go the opposite direction. You've done that beautifully. You guys see those angles that she's got going on there, kind of away from the sun. That's how shadows work, away from the light source, the opposite side. Very nice. Denise, any last questions while you have Wi-Fi?
I'm okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
For listening. And yeah, I didn't expect you to put in a massive conifer, but I love it. Oh, wow. Susan, I didn't know you painted so much on this.
Thank you for cropping.
No
Better
problem.
composition.
I hope everybody kind of got a chance to see. I'm going to pop out of here and go see the progress on this. It was pretty, how do I get out of here? A lot of information. What? Don't know how to get out of this. Do I have to go back through everything?
Your escape button?
Really?
Escape.
I mean, yeah.
My escape button. Let's
Put
see.
your cursor up to the left and an X should come up.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. Maybe it's not there. Uh-oh.
Just press your escape button. It usually takes it back.
Yeah, I don't even know what an escape button is.
Upper left corner of the keyboard.
Nothing.
Keyboard.
Yeah, no, I'm on there. It's not doing anything.
Not in the screen.
Interesting.
Maybe go to home.
I'll just go to Susan's because that's what I need. So here, Susan, I hope you don't mind me sharing your kind of
Yes.
first
Welcome.
shot. So bang. And I was kind of like, that is a very interesting melty house and a tree growing right on top of it. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And so then we get to these references. Here's the initial reference with
Original.
the edit there. Okay.
Just the edit, yeah.
So as painters, we are so drawn in by the weird. People love to look at this one of a kind weird tulip. No other tulips ever looked like this. It's all interesting and strange. Or look at this tree trunk. It's so crazy and doesn't even make sense. Or look at these clouds. They're like UFOs and they're so foreign and strange. I want to paint them. I strongly suggest against painting the weird, the obscenely weird, the weird where like when you're looking at it as a photo, and you've got them like, what is going on? I don't understand it. Oh, okay, cool. As a photo, we get away with a lot more because it's real, right? As painters, we just don't get away with as much. The viewer just will tack it up to a mistake. So what do we see going on here right away that's so strange? Go ahead, anybody.
Giant tree in the middle of the house.
Bam, yeah.
I found,
And it's a lollipop of a tree. Okay, what else?
foundation.
Foundation. This house is leaning. It's the foundation is giving out. If you walked into this house, Rumpelstiltskin would be in there. All right. The other thing is it's in a hole.
Oh, yes. Oh.
That's why it's smaller in the front, bigger in the back. It's in a hole. There's a lot of half-buried farms in the rural countryside around Central Oregon. They're so beautiful and they're so cool. And you totally understand why the farmer did it to protect it from the elements, right? Like the front of the wall is full size, but then it goes back into a bit of an embankment or a hill. They are hard to paint and make sense. It just looks like you do not know how to do perspective. So let's go back to see. It looks like it's bigger farther away, it's smaller towards us. And it also looks like it's melting. So if you only looked at this and you didn't know the beautiful reference that Susan had, you would just say, oh no, Susan doesn't know perspective. Too bad. And she doesn't know how that trees have trunks. So then let's go to this reference. Gorgeous reference. Instantly, I was like, yeah, that I see why Susan wants to paint that. Beautiful. You know, you got these interesting things going on, these fun trees. It's got a white house. Who doesn't love a white house in a painting? But it's filled with strangeness. Let's see. Does it show the comments? Huh. Okay, so we go back to this. This is the edit that Susan chose. And I was kind of like, well, a number of things. Your house is in a hole. You've got a lollipop tree. It looks like it's growing right on top of the house. If you don't put the trunk in, the trunk dissects the front of the building very much almost right in half. And you also have these odd branches just kind of coming in from the side here. That happens all the time in photos. It's up to you. Put them in if you want, but I find them to be very odd a lot of the time. They just kind of peekaboo, you know, it's kind of like photo bombing, peeking in from the side a little bit. So there was that. I thought I had some.
Yes, I have another. Yeah. Yeah, back.
15 by 19.
The left-hand side.
Okay, so here's my edits. Do I need to blow that up? Probably. I went ahead and just said, you know what? As cool as that White House is it everything? I don't know. This is still nice. It's got a winding road. It's got the atmosphere. It's got the trees. That's not one option. And these are just things that quickly pop into my head, right? I'm just testing them out.
You give me 3 options.
Yeah. What about no lollipop tree? Maybe that's an option. You know, leave the White House. I would still a house in a hole. That's, you know, foundation is a little crooked. And then I brought back tree. I just moved tree across the.
I chose this option.
Okay, cool. Why did you choose this option?
Because the tree, the right-hand side make a balance. Make balance.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Mm.
Did you do anything with house and hole?
Check my painting.
Let's check your painting.
Yeah,
there.
yeah, this painting, yeah. Oh, still is a
To
whole.
a degree. You straightened it out to a degree. So it makes more sense. And you kind of got the hint of a hole. So that's just a tough thing to paint, right? It's tough when things like in perspective don't make sense. They're hard. They're just hard to accomplish. Because again, the viewer, you're not going to be standing there when you're showing this off, you know, in the Met Museum. You're not going to be standing there holding it and saying, look, here's the reference, here's the painting. So if things don't quite make sense or make the viewer feel weird, awkward, or they make them question your ability to draw perspective or what else, you may want to change it. You may not. You know, you may want to just copy it and do, you know, whatever you want. But so anyways, this is much better, right? I believe this is so much better than the original concept with the little tree peeking out and that everything. So thank you, Susan. It's always tough to stop a painting midway through. I appreciate it. Got your nice flow here. I love your transitions and your soft edges. This dark back here, you could definitely turn that to a bluier grayer color and it will push that back a little bit because it just kind of wants to, do you see right here how that dark wants to really come forward towards the viewer? So anyways, just to be aware of, we got a Mary Susan. So Susan, did I get yours? No. So
I have a question.
Mary.
Because the first time I paint on the wood, so I want to know how some the first layer color when I put the second and they will move, not stay, not like a canvas. Canvas I can easy to control, but in the wood it's a slip, you know.
Okay.
So that's why the black I scared to touch. If I touch, maybe changing. So,
Good
yeah,
point. Did you gesso it yourself or did it come gessoed?
I gessoed in earth red. Yeah, it's dry.
So you gessoed it?
Yeah, I gessoed it. Yes.
Okay, because that's what I've found when I paint with wood is I have to find a gesso that's slightly absorbent
Uh,
and I leave it a little bit toothier. I don't sand it as smooth.
oh, see,
When I was
sent
painting
that.
on canvas, I
I
was
sent
adding a gesso that was a little slipperier because I didn't want it to absorb as much as it was because I could do the wiping away method on it.
Yeah,
With the
yes.
board, I found a little bit more of a toothy, slightly absorbent gesso was the key to painting on the board because yes, I have the same problem where the paint just wants to slip and slide and
Yes, yes. So that means not sanding too much, right? Not sanding so smooth. Sanding, not like a. Need I sand it?
yeah,
on the
sand as
gesso?
much or as little as you want. Just know that the smoother, it'll probably be a little slipperier.
Oh, okay.
I also have like pumice powder. You know, pumice like to rub your feet with. The pumice stone that you can buy pumice powder and you can throw that into your gessos and mix it up. And that makes it even more absorbent and a little gives it kind of like a sandpaper texture if you ever want
Chemist
that.
powder, how to spell? Chemist.
Pumice. I don't know. P-U-M-O-S. I don't know. Pumice.
Pumice.
Whoa.
Pumice.
Pumice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And another question for what kind of brushes using? The same like a canvas or have a special brushes?
No, I have the same brushes for everything. I don't know why I'm stuck in here.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Michael, this is Shelley. I used the fast matte paints for the first time on my painting, and it has sort of a sandy texture.
Very good. Yeah, great observation. Yeah, the fast matte paints have a different texture. They're a slower, what we call a short stroke paint. I don't know if we, as in the proverbial we, as in all artists, but myself and my friends call it a short stroke paint, meaning that when you mix the paint up, put it on your brush, and you apply the brush to the surface, the paint just doesn't go as far. It kind of paints for a second and then it stops. Whereas with real oil paints, you paint for a little bit and you just slowly have less and less paint as you drag the brush across the surface. So that's a long stroke paint. And I don't know if that's the real terminology, but it works for me and I understand it. So some paints are you'll just notice that the paint just goes and then stops. And that has something to do with the minerals or the additives or the oil or whatever else. And you'll just find that even earth to earth pigments, like real earth pigments, oftentimes have a shorter stroke than modern colors. And I'm guessing that just has to do with pigment size and their absorption rate of the oil, all sorts of things. And you'll just kind of start to learn that, and you may never care. So Susan, right? I haven't gotten to you. Oh, no, Susan, I just did. Who else was it? Linda? Speak up if there was one more person I was supposed to do.
Yeah, you have a second, Linda.
Linda, okay, yours was at the top of the page.
No, I think it's down.
All right, let's go see all. Linda. There it is, right?
There it is, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so yeah, we talked previously about these darks being, it's hard to tell with the glare. So I was just kind of going from here to here. They're quite similar. In fact, I bet you some of these darks here are as dark or darker. So by cooling those down, bluing those blue grays a little bit, it's going to push that back. Nice colors in there. You guys, with your trunks and branches, if you have them, you want to, if you can, make them a little bigger at the base and they get a little smaller as they go up. The same thing with the branches. Branches are going to get thinner as they go away from the trunk. right? And that's most all, you know, there's a couple trees that you could say, hey, Mike, what about the Billabad tree? And the, you know, whatever crazy tree out of Africa where it's actually heavier on top, you know, great if you're painting that. But for the most part, trunks aren't going to be straight up and down, 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 straight up and down. And they're not going to be solid width. You know, with the bases, it's not as important. But as you get up here and up here, this actually feels like a trunk that doesn't have a base because I can see through this. So it's kind of a trunk that must be floating or something. This trunk. So anyways, just be aware of that. It's an opportunity to inject a little bit of personality into them. You know, like if I do have fence posts, I will often see if I can't lean one or two of them a little bit, just to give them a little bit of personality, a little bit of movement, a little bit of dance, a little bit of a lived in feel. There probably are, you know, pine trees and stuff that do grow straight, but I think you would find it a little more interesting to see what you can do with those a little bit. This, I'm going to ignore your mid area because I imagine you're going to kind of fix that. I think you could almost even take this angle kind of off to here if you wanted, because it's kind of going to go optically like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the yellow clouds in the sky are too bright?
Yeah, and to all their own. I know I have a very similar thing going on, and I'll be questioning that when I get to it. But I also tried to kind of bring some of that over here. So it's not, it's kind of like the two figures in blue, right, Mary? Where we kind of have them way off to the side here. And it kind of like, wow, that's very exciting and very interesting and very one of a kind. And now we're stuck in the middle, in the corner of our painting. It relates to this sort of yellow to yellow, but maybe we could bring in some of that or knock that down a little bit. Maybe don't make it so exciting. I'd probably bring this cloud beyond it a little bit. Kind of looks like it ends right at that tree there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the darks, you know, these are interesting, but this dark line back here, I would definitely want to do something about it. Yeah.
Okay.
This doesn't fall back into space. It really wants to kind of lean up towards us, and it, you know, it's the exact same as the tree here. But yeah, you got a nice design. It's got nice movement to it. You've got a nice focal point. You've kept things pretty well, like the barn kind of stays in the shade. You got this nice edge to the silo. You got some nice negative shapes. Like this is some of your best negative shapes, just because they're, you know, a little bit different. They're not just squares and rectangles. Yeah, lots of great stuff. Really nice colors, nice where you have soft edges near crisper edges. Really creates some nice things. What questions do you have for me on it?
Well, I originally had the gold field a lot brighter, and I thought it was too bright. I thought it was distracting.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I toned it down a bit, and now I'm wondering if I toned it down too much.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
In the original photo, this field size-wise is much smaller than this field.
Yeah, I took some liberty with that.
Okay, cool. As long as you did it on purpose.
I did.
If I measure it, like take my fingers up to the screen and measure it, they're exactly the same height, which kind of gives us that 50-50 feeling. And in fact, the sky is almost again that same measurement. So it kind of creates stripes or thirds, which can be 100% fine. And I didn't really notice it in my initial just looking at it. So it's not like an obvious thing, but it may be something that you want to kind of go, okay, you know, this, if I want this red field to kind of come forward and be bigger, and then the yellow field to kind of, you know, fall back, I'll make it a little smaller. And maybe the sky is the least important, so I make it smaller yet, or no, these clouds are awesome. Let's give them some room to breathe. It's not, nothing's wrong. There's no right or wrong answer to that. It's just kind of a questions to ask yourself. And again, that's my whole job as an artist, as a teacher, is just to help you ask better questions. And again, they're not questions that have answers, not like one answer. They're questions that have 1,000 answers, 1,000 possible answers. You just get to pick the one that you want to go with, that you think is going to work best for what you're after. So when I say things like this, it's not right or wrong. It's just, hopefully you're doing it with intent is all.
Thank you.
Very nice. It's got a good feel to it. And I think the colors have a nice harmony. That warm brick kind of orange of the foreground with the ochre, with the gray purple. It's a harmony I wouldn't think of, but I think it does work nicely. So great job. All right, I'm going to come back over here, stop share. We did go a little bit long. Would you guys, which one do you prefer, the quick draw painting or finishing up the colors on the farm? If I was to pick which one to do next, I can go in any order.
Quick draw.
Quick draw.
Okay, cool. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Let's take a 5-minute break. Get yourself warm your tea back up. I know my coffee is ice cold. So actually, let's do about a 6-minute because I do need to get some coffee. I forgot to drink it this morning. That's why I'm so boring and slow here. I need some caffeine, especially if I'm going to do a quick draw. And I need time to set up. So I'll take the farm off. I'm just going to use the same colors that we had. I may get crazy and add one more color just for interest. And very cool. Thank you guys. It's going to be fun. And I'm going to urge you to chime in and ask questions as I'm painting. Again, you can pin me so that it doesn't change to the speaker every time. If that's an issue, I can also put music on over here softly if that works. And that will keep the scene coming back to me if I ever get quiet, get lost in my painting. Because sometimes with quick draws, my brain will short circuit a little bit. So anyways, 5-10 minutes. Well, let's say 7 minutes break, which gets us to 10:47. See ya. Alexa, continue. I'm just trying to figure out my comfort. I don't like to paint too low and I don't like to paint too high. So I think what that means is I may just be moving it up and down as I go back and forth a little bit. Normally I would put them side by side and have my palette down below, but I imagine you guys want to see the colors being mixed. Is that true, or would you rather have them both side by side and not see the color mixing as much? I just need to hear from somebody.
I like the color mixing idea. I like to see it.
Me too.
Okay.
I agree. Yep.
Read.
Sorry.
All right, great. We'll do that, and I will just be moving them up and down a little bit as I'm painting. So I apologize, they won't both be in the screen all the time.
Michael, what is the canvas size here?
12 by 12, thank you for asking. And they are on birch panels.
Okay, thank you.
Mostly what I'm painting on are birch or kiln dried cedar, I think it is. Maybe not cedar, I can't remember. Kiln dried something or other. It's a wood out of Norway or Russia. But typically it's just birch, which American Easel is the brand. They're made in Salem, Oregon. Awesome people. I know some of you have ordered from them because I've been getting thank you notes from them. So that's cool. Thanks for name dropping because I love those guys. And I really feel good about helping them. They are really generous with OSA. They actually are the ones that we do the 12 by 12, 200 for 200 show. At OSA, Oregon Society of Artists. Oh, lights, I forgot lights. Got my new fancy lights and I wasn't even setting them up. Man, what a difference. Okay, one more minute. Just need to grab one more thing and then we are ready to go. I see people aren't all back yet, so give that one more minute. Do a little show and tell while we're waiting, but I think everybody's almost back. Last week, believe it or not, this painting was done with the leftover colors from last week's class. And I really liked it. I just had a ton of fun just scribbing this paint. You can probably see it's very odd and broken brush strokes, but it had such a nice feel to it. I really liked it. This is just a made up scene. Had fun just kind of experimenting with trees. There's actually some information in the grasses here, but not much. It's mostly just a three value painting. And then I'll talk to you guys about the colors and how they shift up and stuff like that in our color class. So that's one thing I wanted to share. The other is first week's painting. I went back in and finished coloring it up. So changed it quite a lot, but this is the very first week when we did the very super simple design. And you can see how just a nice, simple design. I really like kind of the mood and feel. There's actually quite a bit of information in those grasses as well when it gets up close, but nothing's really described. It's just kind of enough to say there's a top edge, a upright plane. The trees, I just left them barely hinted in, like they were really wispy, not overly described, but just enough that our brain kind of fills in. Those are probably some trees. Yeah, anyways, lots of fun.
Very nice.
Okay, one thing I wanted to show you guys, just because I was doing it, a lot of times our brushes will end up kind of splayed and really losing their shape and their form. And, you know, like this should be a nice straight, sharp edge. This is a crappy brush, but anyways, my favorite brush right now that I'm painting with are these really strange, really long bristles. That's what I did the cloud in the other painting with. And it just forces me to be very organic. It's just such a long brush, long hairs, that it's hard to control. I'm not suggesting any of you go out and buy these by any means, but I'm kind of to the point where I like kind of the happy accidents, especially in clouds and whatnot. But these brushes, when they get beat up, like if I accidentally start scrubbing too hard with them, they get really crazy shapes. And so yesterday I was going to paint with them and I just couldn't do anything. They were too exploded out. They were too gone. So how I will reform them is, one, I will clean them very well with Murphy's oil soap. Doesn't it sound like I'm doing a commercial? Murphy's oil soap is a floor cleaner, but it's got oil in it, which will actually bring my brushes, my not synthetic brushes, but my natural hair brushes back to life quite a lot. The only problem is this oil, you don't want to leave it in your brush when you go to paint with it because it's just a different type of an oil. But I do clean it with them, and I'll even leave it sitting in there. This one came back, I got the shape back pretty nicely. For whatever reason, it wasn't as in bad a shape, but this brush was just everywhere. And after I washed it, it was even worse. So to get it back, what I will do is take a piece of cardboard. Great thing is the little advertisements in magazines for, keep subscribing to our magazine, those little pieces of cardboard. I take it, I fold it in half. Oh, and what I did was I cleaned this brush really well, and then I actually started working in just into the tips some Vaseline, just a little bit of Vaseline. So that will help it get the shape that I want. Then I take a piece of cardboard, fold it, put it up against the corner edge, fold it over, and then overnight, any heavy object will do. I just put it underneath this bunch of brushes and random. This is like my random tool kit. I had it just sitting on there, pushing down, adding pressure back. And look, I got my nice little edge. Look at that edge quality. Of course, it has Vaseline in it and it has the other oil in it. So I need to make sure that I remember to dip it into my paint thinner for a second to get those oils off. The paint thinner will take those oils off. I'll just give that a quick wipe through. Look at that, I kept my edge. I saved my paintbrush. My favorite paintbrush is not dead. So there you go. That's a great little, when I found that out, I got it from, what's his name, Schmidt. Anyways, famous painter Schmidt. Can't remember his first name. I saw that in one of his little videos as a bonus thing. I went through and did that to like every one of my good brushes. And it was amazing. They all just came back really nicely. So there you go. Little brush saving tip for you.
Richard.
Richard Schmidt. How could I forget that name? My goodness. That's blasphemy of me. So I'm just making sure I got
it too. Came back.
What's that? All right. Hey,
I had a senior moment too. I forgot his
yeah.
name
Alexa, stop.
also.
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. I forgot the music was on. That was our intermission music. Anyways, maybe I'll use those brushes today. Maybe I'll even use them for my sketch. Mostly I will be using my crazy brushes, my shop brushes, as I started out here. And again, I'm just using the same colors that we chose for last week, simply because those are what I had on the palette. Making some space, cleaning off all the stuff I got going on here. Piles everywhere. Okay, so for my reference is just going to be kind of out of my head. Like I said, I'm going to do some creeks, with some trees. For my color references, I picked these out. I think I showed them to you guys a couple weeks ago. I literally just cut these out of a magazine. I love the colors in this. They're so odd, that little bright hair and the ketchup bottle in there. Just so odd, but it really goes together nicely. So what I want to do with these colors is I'm going to do kind of a meandering creek up. It's going to be mostly in shadow, and it's going to be side lit. So the tops of a couple of trees are going to be picking up this nice orange hint, and I'm going to be pretending that my sky is coming across. Okay, so there's my one idea. My other idea I thought might be fun is to do a cool sky, warm ground. I don't really care about this painting in this, but I do like the color references. I thought it was kind of interesting and fun. I will just use it as a takeoff point. I'm not going to make it all so flat and abstract as this artist has done. But anyways, I like to have something, just to kind of go from a little bit. And I thought that might be nice. Sorry. All right, so, don't need soap. There's the Vaseline, don't need that.
Just a quick question, Michael, please. It's Mary.
Ask questions the whole time, you guys. Let's make this interactive.
I'm interested to know, when you get your edges as you go through these paintings, if you're painting toward the object you want or away from it with your brush strokes, and does it matter?
It probably matters. I guess I just need to kind of understand what you mean. So you'll see that I'm going to do big shapes, kind of, and I will probably leave a little bit of air between the shapes, a touch. Oh, I guess I should be getting my underpaint color going a little bit here while we're talking. So I guess, can you tell me just a touch more what you mean by that? So I know if we're on the same page.
That was already very helpful. It's when the two things meet, the atmosphere meets the edge, or the
Yeah, okay, so that's a great question. And when you're painting wet into wet, that is the hardest thing to retain is the edge. Wow, that yellow is super hot. Let me see if I can change the colors here. It's a little more orangey in mine. That change it at all? A little bit.
Is that Indian yellow?
So that's Indian yellow. Okay, now I'm just gonna go, and this is a little bit arbitrary what colors I'm choosing. Now I'm just gonna do red. Just to show you. Take my palette or my paper towel. Just gonna give them a wipe down so they're not sloppy wet, and I'm just kind of moving the paint around. All right. So
Michael, this is Kim. Are you painting on panel?
panels, yeah, birch panel that I gessoed. Actually, my daughter gessoed. I'm stealing panels from her. She might not be too happy when she comes up and realizes I stole her panels. I'll just paint some more after class for her. She's working on a number of, I think she's got 3 commissions right now that she's working on. And I will be moving these up and down just a touch as I paint. So there's a little bit of Indian yellow mixing in with this, so it's going to make it kind of a little more orangey.
Is it quinacridone red with?
This is quinacridone red with, and it has just a touch of contaminated Indian yellow into it. So it's going a little bit more towards a ketchup red.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, and now I'm going to take my quinacridone red. I'll go ahead and mix a touch of yellow in there. And I'm just going to use quinacridone red to give me my drawing really quickly. It's going to be a very basic. Just kind of thinking that's. I'm going to put my horizon line quite high on this one. I'm going to have my creek ending up right about there. Just going to give this kind of an exciting sense of motion to it. And I'm just kind of, each time I'm putting down a line, I'm stepping back a little bit. There we go. Looks like a road or whatever else. Maybe I'll even bring this angle up a little. On this side, put some big trees. Just going to go ahead and bring them off the page. Maybe the trees get a little smaller. Right, kind of like at the creek. And I'm just kind of trying to give it a good feeling. The cool thing about, again, at this stage is it's very liquid. I can move things around very easily. Let's make this tree smaller, kind of bringing it in between those two, where the ground is. A little different shape. And some trees back here. Some creeks on my horizon line. Man, what a mess. Awesome. Bring this line up just a touch. All All right, well, I'm gonna look at that while I get the next one going here. This one I'll do a lower horizon line. I'm gonna use my earth red again. Maybe I'll bring in a touch of blue just to give it a little bit darker so I can see it on that red background. So lower. So I'm going to make my horizon line so high horizon line on the top one, low horizon line on the bottom one. Let's get some trees. Don't be too replicated of the one above it either. Just trying to make sure they're kind of different sizes, different shapes. Let me know if it's too glary or anything. I apologize that I don't have it both scenes staying in the camera, but because we're stacking them. Just kind of giving myself a couple little lines, kind of where the creek edge might be. See if it works. Let's get a little darker. It's kind of nice having the monitor over there to kind of look at. There we go. So again, this is kind of my, man, I've had a bad day and I don't feel like painting as much. Let's do something I'm comfortable with. I don't feel like maybe challenging myself as much. But, you know, or man, I want to experiment. Maybe I bought some new tubes of color and I just want to try them out and see how they play together. You know, painting something that I'm a little more comfortable with can be fun. So I've got two fairly different water shapes. One much more exciting, a lot more action. This painting's gonna hopefully raise people's blood pressure just a touch or make them feel a little bit like, man, I mean, especially with those colors, look at that. And then the one on the bottom, hopefully will be a little bit more restful. It's a little more horizontal, where this one's more vertical, more angles, more drama. All right, see that? I should, you know, should take a step back and just see if I got my edges in a nice place. All right, so now while that kind of sets, and I could even, if I want to make sure my edges aren't too thick, I can actually take a big shop brush here and I'm just going to soften those edges just a touch. You guys remember, you're going to have this on video so you can refer back to it. You can say, man, minute 20, that's where Mike really lost the plot and the painting went south. Or, you know, I'll be painting pretty quickly. So
The point of softening those edges, it's intuitively clear to me why you're doing it, but why technically are you doing it?
Because it's making just the paint less thick. So now I'll be able to apply paint over the top of it easier. And I'm just going to have some soft edges. So I don't know. It's just going to be easier for me to kind of paint on top of with thinner paint. I could take my paper towel and kind of do it the same too. I just think this will make some fun edges. I'll probably do this once or twice in the painting process, actually. It's interesting, that tree just kind of disappeared in the monitor. Let's get a little more red up in there. Yeah, I don't know if I would suggest people do it that way, but it'll make it faster for me to build the paint up on top. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pre-mix my colors. So this one is the one where the light will be kind of coming across and hitting. Oops, sorry. This is one where the light will kind of be coming across and hitting kind of the tops of these trees. Will be kind of some of that red, which will make it exciting, borrowing from this painting. And then it'll have the cooler gray greens and other colors down here to make this kind of the exciting area, kind of your reward as you work your way up. The bottom one in my very loose theory is going to bring some of this. I'll have kind of a more of a cool sky, and we'll see how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-mix some of those colors. It feels again like, oh man, you're in a quick draw. You got to keep rocking, got to keep moving, but I'll actually hopefully save myself some time by mixing some colors. So I'm going to mix my cools over here. So start off with some darks, like my French ultramarine, a little bit of Indian yellow, and my quinacridone red. Makes a very nice dark, very transparent. It's kind of going to be very cool shadow color. I'm going to add a little more red, getting it towards purple a little bit. I can test it by adding just a touch of white and seeing which way it leans. Oh, it's almost a perfect gray. So very nice. See if I can get that so you can see it better. So there I've got some nice darks. Let's get some nice greens going. I don't want to be stingy with my paint because I want to be able to just kind of slop it on. So I took my French ultramarine, put in a little bit of the yellow ochre. I have no idea what's going to happen. Let's see. But I do imagine the yellow ochre feels like it has a little bit of white. It's more opaque. So it will take the color, and it's got a nice kind of a navy gray green, blue, navy blue, quite dark still. I'm going to bring in some white to that. Oh, beautiful color.
Excuse me, Michael, was that ultramarine blue and ochre plus white?
Yeah, and ochre, and then I'm adding a little bit of white to it. Yeah, I'm going to add a little more yellow ochre to it as I lighten it up, a little more white to it. I'm seeing if yellow ochre and French ultramarine make green. They really don't want to. They're fighting each other. It's the reds in both of them. So you'd think yellow ochre, French ultramarine blue, that they should make green, but they're really not. They're making, so I'm going to add a little Indian yellow. And we're getting towards a nice, I should say ugly green, but I think it's going to harmonize nicely with what we've got going on here. Let's move this red pile out of the way. I'm going to take yellow ochre, touch of that red. Now, so I've got kind of my tree colors I'm kind of thinking here. Now I'm going to get down into the grasses a little bit, the flat plains. That could actually be really nice for kind of the top lit. area. So I'll pull some of that up there, save it, add some more yellow ochre down here. I'm gonna add a little French ultramarine, but it's gonna be yellow ochre heavy because I want this to be lighter than my tree colors in value. Let's add some white. And this painting is gonna have a lot of grays in it. Like all the colors are gonna be kind of grayed down. Maybe some of you guys saw in one of my comments, I think it was with Mary, about the color wheel and how we neutralize colors. Walking away. We'll go into this in a lot. When we mix, if we want our colors to stay vibrant, like a vibrant green, you want a blue that leads towards green and a yellow that leads towards green. If we use a yellow that leans towards orange and a blue that leans towards purple, we're going to make a much more dirty kind of a olivey green because of all the reds that are in those colors. Also, if we mix further away on the color wheel, like yellow with purple, we end up in the middle. So just kind of imagine that colors kind of come towards each other when you're mixing them together. So like if I mix blue and orange, it's going to go brown. Okay, so yellow ochre exists kind of here in space, or maybe, yeah, kind of here in space, where it's yellowy, but it leads towards orange a touch, but it's also brown, so it means it's got blue mixed into it, so it's somewhere in here. It's in the grays and browns in the middle of the color space. So if your colors are too vibrant, like you mixed a purple and you want purple, but boy, is that purple just too electric, mix yellow into it and it will neutralize it. It'll start taking it towards the grays and browns a little bit, just a touch of yellow, and it'll still feel like purple. The more yellow you add, the more neutralized it gets. All right, I'm kind of liking this. What sky color do I want for that?
Some peach.
Orange up here, some purples down here. Let's try a very light green, just to play off the oranges that are going to kind of be on the tops of the trees as they're getting top lit.
So to a certain extent, you will have a mental color design in addition to your shape and angle design.
Well, I'm making that up. Again, it's kind of based on these colors, but I don't have it so laid out in my head. But as I'm making these colors, I'm kind of beginning to imagine it. So there we got a very light paisley green-ish color. And I'm going to go ahead and take that towards pink, peach color as well. I'm still leaving some of that green in. So even though it's a peachy color by adding the quinacridone red and the Indian yellow, by leaving a little bit of that green in, it should harmonize the color, neutralize it a little bit. Again, kind of across the color wheel from peach, which is an orange, is my blues. So by mixing some of those greens in. All right, there we go. That's kind of a pretty sky color. See if I can put it in front of the camera to get the colors a little better. You guys see that? They're almost the same value, but it's kind of a warmer peacher and a cooler kind of sagey, light gray, sagey green. So there we go. I think I've got my colors for the most part for my top painting. So let's think the bottom painting. The bottom painting is going to be more reds in the ground. So I've grabbed a big pile of red. I can even add more. I'm going to add some Indian yellow. And I'm going to go ahead and add some of the ochre. I'm just going to see what happens when I mix this. So that red is pretty dominant. It's kind of owning the pile. That's very much redder than I need. So I'm going to save some of it. In fact, some of it may even kind of work up here. Just a touch. Look how exciting that color is compared to all the others. Where do I want to take this? I want to take it towards orange, just a little more. So I'm going to add more Indian yellow, more ochre. So it's still really hot. So I'm going to gray that down. I'm going to add more yellow ochre. In fact, there goes my yellow ochre. You see how the color's kind of turning, kind of interesting there. It is reading a little hotter on my monitor than it is in front of me. Let's get some whites going on in here. Lighten it up just a touch. Remember, white's going to cool down my colors a little bit. I'm just going to see what happens when I mix some white into this. Nice kind of a, well, what they used to call flesh tone, I guess. I don't know what the new color name for it is. Kind of a sandy rose. I don't know.
Thousand Island dressing.
Thousand Island dressing. Yes, indeed. I'm going to add it into my mid orange here, which is making, maybe I can call this one Dusty Rose. One of these is going to be Dusty Rose. I'm going to take this over to my super hot red. And again, it's cooling it down. White cools colors down. They do have warmer yellows. Warmer whites, if that becomes a concern for you. I'm going to make sure I reload my yellow ochre so I don't get lazy and just not use it. Okay, those colors are kind of fun, but they are not necessarily the colors I wanted. They're very, very bright. I think it would look kind of outlandish if I painted it with those colors. You're more than welcome to, but I'm going to go ahead and add some blue into each one of them to kind of neutralize them and bring them towards a little bit grayer. I think they'll still read as reds or maybe even purpley. I'm just looking for colors that I like, colors that I think will play nicely together. Sometimes I'll keep my colors all kind of within a family, like the whole painting, kind of monochromatic, meaning of one color. So if we were again looking at the color wheel, the whole painting could take place all kind of in this family. I can keep them, maybe kind of like if you imagine a pizza slice where this is brown and gray here, up to red, up over to orange, so that all the colors that kind of exist in that space. I can definitely do that. And you will see a lot of my paintings will have very much a predominant pizza slice color or kind of a color harmony. And then I may introduce just a little bit from across the color wheel in some spot to make it feel a little more special. But what I'm going to do is literally kind of paint this painting in this area. So kind of the reds, the orangey, but all, and thinking of all the browns. So I'll be mixing the blues to make those browns or greens more to the fact. But because it's got blue, and there's yellow mixed into my paints, it makes green. Bringing it to here. Does that make sense? I know we'll talk about that a lot more in the next class, but does that make sense? Kind of the idea. So this top painting has blues. It's going to have the reds. It's got some of the greens. It's got some purples. And I bet the only color it doesn't have is yellow in it. So I'm using all the colors, but what I'm doing is trying to gray them down so that they have kind of a harmony. and relate to each other in that way. Again, not what this class is about. We'll talk about that all in the future, but you can kind of, as you're watching me paint them, kind of decide if it's working, if it's interesting to you. There's lots of artists who make their whole career painting kind of monochromatic, beautiful, subtle paintings. So you can see I've left the really dramatic colors. I've got the more grayed down versions of them. And now I just need a dark for those guys. So I'll grab my French Ultramarine. He's always the base for my darks. Grab my Quinacridone Red and a little bit of Indian Yellow. So it's just the same darks that I made before. And then I'm going to bend them so that they are doing what I want. I'm actually going to probably warm these shadows up just a touch so that they stay in harmony, keeping to that red theme. I'm not going to have any very many darks, so I just went ahead and added a little white, so it kind of takes my darks to gray. You don't need to have black and white on all your paintings. You can also keep your values kind of condensed a little bit. Oh, sky color. My sky color is going to be on the yellow ochre, kind of the brownie. So it'll almost feel like a cooler sky compared to some of those orangey reds that I'm going to have. May even add a touch of blue and see what happens. I'm going to take some of that pile away and save it because that might be fun to kind of have it reflecting in the ground plane. And I want more white because I want it to be definitely lighter than my ground plane colors, my upright trees and my grasses. There we go. It's not too shabby. So I got a little bit of a value shift in there, kind of going from the more yellow ochre to the more creamy white. And let's do it. Let's splash some of these colors onto there and see what happens as we build it up here. I'm going to go ahead and start with my darks.
Did you put a tiny bit of paint thinner in?
I haven't. No, I'm just kind of scrubbing it, keeping it nice and thin. I don't want it to be too slippery, especially when you're painting wet into wet. I generally don't want it to have too much slip. It will make it hard to add the next layer. So, you know, what can I do to make the paint a little, this would be a great time to use actually some of the fast matte colors because that little bit of tooth that they have would be really useful. went ahead and used a lighter color back there. It's hard to see because it's kind of a gray blue, but against that red, it's showing up as quite dark. So I apologize for that. Bring some of that gray blue kind of in here as well. Once I get those extreme bright colors covered up, you're going to be able to see a little better what's going on. But right now, those optical, like the camera's having a hard time focusing on it, so extreme. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover my big areas so that I get that crazy bright, bright, bright yellow covered up. How about that? All right. I'm putting quite a bit of paint on the brush so I can just kind of scrub it in. Keeping it simple, very simple. I can come in and add all the weeds and grasses and flowers and stuff into my gray field here as I want in a little bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna do my sky because the sky is the water reflecting, water, sky. And that's my next big spot. I wanna get that covered. I'm gonna let my brush stay a little bit dirty, but I'll clean it. Now I'm going to clean it actually a little more because these colors are fairly light and that was a fairly dark color. Doesn't look like it on the palette or on the surface, but let's start with my cool green. Man, I probably should have mixed more. Keeping it nice and big, nice and simple. Yeah, I should have definitely made more sky color. Let's see if we can get that to go a little further. And again, you guys, please don't judge your paintings on speed unless you're trying to show off to people on Zoom. This painting may even start really fast and I'll get it 90% of what appears to be done. But then I will slow it way down and bring in detail and, you know, manipulate things.
So if I were doing that painting, I would be pulling the red into the lighter color. I would have all kinds of problems with bleed, but you're able to avoid that.
Well, I'm just painting right up to it. There is some bleeding going on, but I'm gonna probably use it. And there's enough paint here, like in the sky. Again, hard to see with these lights. Oh, no, that's too much. I'm gonna have to adjust the lights here in just a minute because let's try it with. They're pretty extreme. Maybe the brightness is too high on them. Yeah, it's way up high. But what I'll do is I've got a lot of paint now on that surface. And so what I'm doing is I'm giving myself, if you can imagine a sculptor with clay, I'm giving myself clay to work with. it's enough that's going to be on there that I'm going to be able to, adjust, or I'm going to be able to move it. The paint that's on there basically is enough. So if we can see these kind of red shapes up here, it's kind of got this kind of en fuego silhouette going on. I can actually take that paint that's in the sky and begin to use it to carve in. Okay, that makes sense, you guys? And I don't mind some soft, edges in places, and I've also left enough paint in my pile that I can come back and forth. If you are getting areas that you don't want that blending, just make sure you clean your brush. You can take your paper towel and wipe that away, your Q-tip if it's a small area, your palette knife, anything you want to do to kind of get it away. And then just make sure you're wiping your brush enough in between. When you're meeting edges is kind of where it becomes important to keep cleaning your brush. All right, what was my tree color? Is going to be kind of this
So
crazy.
your dark colors are always a thinner paint coat than what your lights are.
If I'm doing well, yes. That was why my last commission was so hard to photograph, is that all the darks were so shiny because I'd put them in pretty thickly. So yeah, it definitely helps if you can keep your darks thinner, with either paint, thinner, like less paint, or less like medium, any of the shiny mediums. All right, so that's pretty far along. I'm just going to go ahead and take my big brush and kind of knock in some of that. Somebody's microphone is on.
Could you all check your mute buttons, please?
So I have so much paint on there that I'm actually able to manipulate it kind of here. I'm just kind of softening edges and kind of so here I'm just using that little bit of red that's showing through still. Who would have thought you'd be painting on a 12-inch by 12-inch with a 2-inch, 3-inch brush?
I think you're pretending it's a brush. It's actually your magic wand.
There you go. So there, I've got a pretty good shape, a pretty good design. I've got it laid in. I'm going to leave that and go to the bottom one, and then I'm going to come back in and refine those shapes and add my more dramatic colors and add a little bit of interest. I'm going to grab my camera for just a second and zoom in so you can kind of see it. So sorry about the shine as always, but you can kind of get the idea, right? It's got a nice harmony to it. They're not very exciting colors right now. It's kind of like khaki pants as far as excitement goes, but not
You know,
bad.
there's an example too where everything, the edges are soft now, and I'm very interested to find out how and when you sharpen them.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Stay tuned to find out. All right, now we got my red painting and my crazy Joker sky. I don't know. This one seems pretty far out there. Permission to change as I see how this one shapes up. But let's see. Clean this brush because I'm going into my darks. I'll just use a new brush because taking your paintbrush that has is covered in the lights from the sky and what I was just doing, and then trying to bring it into my shadows down here would be asking for nothing but heartache. So I'm just going to grab a clean brush, still a shop brush because I'm just looking for big shapes, and let's see what happens. Got my upright grasses here, kind of comes down to the edge of the creek. Kind of some upright grasses here, maybe opens up a little more upright grasses. Got my far back bank. Bank is slowly kind of coming towards us because I like meandering creeks. And again, I'm not expecting you guys to paint creeks and sunsets and silhouetted, you know, backlit silhouetted trees. That's just kind of been my baby. I don't know why. I just can't get away from it. I just always find it enthralling. It's where the kind of places I want to go take walks. Like this weekend, we walked for miles and miles and miles around the wetlands out at Forest Grove. We just did laps and laps. And even though it was a gray day and everything's dead because of fall, I still just find it so enthralling looking at the grasses and the cattails, the dead cattails and everything else. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out this tree. I'm going to put its base right about there. I'm going to put this tree's base right about there. So if I bring it across, this tree is a little bit closer. Then kind of goes back. I'm going to put the base of this tree that's kind of behind it, kind of there. So figuring out where the bottoms of things are, the bottoms of my grasses, the bottoms of my trees, and generally things are darkest where they meet the ground, right? Kind of, you know, like if you're doing still lives and stuff. Maybe I'm just going to have this tree by itself so it's not full. Maybe I won't have another tree to its left. I think maybe that'll, you know, just make it a little bit different. I'm gonna bring some of this gray blue again for back there. Maybe add a little purple to it. For my far back trees, I just want it to get grayer. I'm gonna, how do I want to do this? So I'm gonna leave it going behind here. So my base of those guys is roughly right about there. Let's think, what shape do I want? Like, do I want an opening back there? Maybe. Where do I want that opening? Maybe here. So I could bring back a little bit of a tree here. And then maybe tree here. Maybe I'm just going to wipe this away and see what happens. Yeah, a little more white, so there's a little more obvious space back there. It's a little opening, right? The creek's kind of meandering back. It kind of gives us an opening, so I can still put trees back there. I'm just going to push them really far back. Make them even smaller and even lighter. Maybe they kind of peek through over here too. Something like that. All right. Now, this painting is staying kind of in the red family. So let's bring in some reds. So it's going to start with kind of a gray, dirty gray purple. I kind of like these brushes again because they just kind of force me to be sloppy. I'm not worrying too much. I'm going to come back and refine what I want to refine. But as of now, oops, big mistake already. Anybody want to guess what I forgot? Yes, that's right. This tree should be reflecting because it's over the top of my water. So don't want to get too far away from that before I at least give myself a way to remember.
Are reflections always straight down based on the viewpoint of the viewer?
Yes. Yes. Reflections are always coming just basically straight down below the thing. Yeah, so shadows, a lot of people mistake shadows and reflections are definitely can be different. Shadows are if my sun, like in the top painting is off to the left, my shadows would be coming across here, across there. This one, I don't know where I'm going to put my light even yet. I should probably decide that, right? Rule number 1, where's your light source? I'll probably put it, somewhere like in here so I can have it down, warm up my edges. Be interesting to have warm edges on red trees because everything's kind of warm. Okay, let's jump ahead to the sky. Just going to go ahead and smush some of this color into my sky. That's the same color I just put in my grass. That seems a little crazy, and it might be. I'm just going to put it up top and maybe a little bit down on the bottom. All right, now my sky colors were these ochre-y guys, right? It's kind of a creamy ochre and a yellowy ochre. Not sure why we got good color last week and we're not getting as good a color this week, so I apologize for that. And I'm not cleaning my brush this time. I'm gonna let there be even more harmony in the colors. Yeah, very gray. I got so much gray going on. I'll have to decide, but gray's kind of nice because you can bring in little splashes of color, and it feels really special. All right, now I need to get some red on top of those trees. I'm gonna keep it. Looks like there is red on top of those trees already. Which one do I like? So that was my grass. away my tree over here. So I need to get rid of it. A little clear cutting, and I need to bring that color across. All right, let's do the same thing we did above and kind of bring the edges a little closer, kind of smush our colors a little further apart. And then hopefully we're gonna have nice kind of big shapes figured out. Again, no detail yet, it's just our big forms, our big colors. Ooh, kind of cool. It's a lot pinker in your guys's than I'm seeing it, but it's kind of nice with that. There's actually a cooler color on top.
Are you using very little pressure with your brush there?
Yeah, you know, and I'm changing it as I get closer to edges and whatnot. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for noticing that. And I will. Yeah, sometimes I use a little more edge, sometimes a little less. And my tree's got a little too light. I'm gonna have to bring more shadow back in. Or just have a lower dynamic value range. I'll have to decide.
Michael, can I ask a question?
Sure.
This is a design question. It seems to me that the break in the trees at far back is kind of in the center of the picture.
Not quite.
Not quite. Okay, so it's off enough to.
Yeah, so if I measure it, that's this, and then that's here.
Okay.
So not quite, but yeah, good point. You always want to be aware of that, and you know, and I can make it as exciting or as least as unexciting as I want. You So everything's sort of soft edged right now, a little bit boring, a little bit muted, kind of, you know, could have an okay feel to it if that's your thing. I noticed that this edge of my beach ends up right on the edge of this tangent. So just got to get rid of something, probably. So I'll just take that back. So it's kind of halfway in there. All right, there we go. I've got big shapes, big colors, red one, kind of a gray, green, ochre one. Now, let's do some carving and some manipulation of paint. So again, the whole key was wet into wet, and this paint is thick. It really is. I have added a lot of paint. I can see my brush strokes in it. even though it has soft edges. So I've got a lot to manipulate, and I've still got tree shapes to make up. Right now, they're basically just big lumps. And so I'm going to try to make them somewhat interesting and bring in some, some structure. So I'm just going to go ahead and see what brushes I got in here, clean these off. And I'm just going to use these 4 brushes basically to kind of clean it up. Maybe these 2 mostly. The reason being is they got kind of nicer edges. This one's a synthetic and this one's a hog hair bristle. I'll start with my hog hair bristle. If you like to paint with soft brushes, I suggest that you kind of work with your firmer structural brushes in the beginning, and then you work towards the soft brushes. Soft brushes are great for manipulating edges and whatnot. I don't use too many soft brushes generally, but nothing against them. All right, so first I'm going to look into my shadows and see if my structure is making sense. I think this guy could come down a little lower. Ooh, what color? So I'm just rebuilding up my darks a little bit, giving myself some structure. So you kind of being able to see some of those darks there. I'm just kind of giving the grasses kind of a little bit of a foundation, a structure to build on so that it's not so wishy-washy. Be able to see them as I get a little closer. Maybe I can even zoom in a little bit. Bring that guy down so he's the one that's in the scene.
Can you talk about what you're thinking as you make those marks?
Sure. So you can kind of begin to see that, right? I'm just thinking structure again. So kind of like how are the grasses laying, or, you know, kind of the banks of this? How does it all kind of fit together? And that's the hardest part about making up this kind of stuff is I'm like, what is this? Is it ground? Is it grass? Is it a bunch of swamp weeds? What do I have here? And as of right now, I'm kind of thinking kind of maybe shin high grass. And I'm just kind of, how is it structured? So it's kind of giving me my height. So if I come up with this brush stroke, I'm creating grasses. If I just go straight with an angle, then it's not, then it just kind of goes down towards the bank. So maybe that's even better, actually. Maybe I just want that, or maybe I want in between. But I'm just kind of giving my plants some height, I guess. Now back here, just kind of figuring out what's going on with these trees. So just tightening up some of those edges, but I've got that nice kind of blur around it. Even though there's structure, it's still got kind of a soft edge. So Mary, that's kind of where some of that tightening up. And it's a matter of, you know, I'm just leaving it. I'm not making a mark and then hitting it over and over and over because that just softens it. If I just kind of come in and leave a line, then it's there, but I don't want that one there. So there's sometimes that I want soft edges and sometimes that I want crisper edges. And that's kind of going to be up to you as you decide what's going on necessarily. I should probably step back and figure out what the heck these trees are. I really kind of jumped in so fast. I don't even know what kind of bushes I'm painting. Like what's their nature, but maybe that's okay. And remember, I'm going to bring red kind of over the top of this. So my sunlight's coming from here over to there. Got my cooler sky, my cooler water, my warmer kind of lighter. It's hard to see in there again. Yeah, I wish I had it in between these two settings. Let's see if I turn this light on instead. But this one will cast a shadow when I move in front of it. So many different lights. How's that? Can you guys see that, or is that too dark? Too light, too dark.
With the dark one, we can see the blues better.
Yeah.
I can move these lights out just a touch. See if that helps. Always experimenting.
One thing nice about seeing the lights is that you still are maintaining light gaps everywhere you're expecting the reflections to show up of the light.
Of the red, or what do you mean?
The red.
Yeah, and those edges will be kind of nice when they're softened. So I'm going to go ahead and get into some of these reds and bring those on top and see how they play. Man, I can't see it at all. I don't know if it's that reflection. Ah, I know what it is. It's outdoors coming in. It's like my constant struggle. Whew. My constant struggle is just controlling light. So again, my light's coming from my left side, kind of striking these trees on their left side. And bring a little bit across the top of my guy on the left side. He's picking up a little bit of that, a nice light, but it would be more on his left side here. So he's not showing us too much of it probably. Maybe where it sticks up a little bit. Where it should get interesting is in my back trees there. How do I kind of kind of hitting the tops of them, some of the sides. Put you all to sleep. Hopefully, yeah, you can kind of see the reds there. Now I'm just going to kind of give some shape, a little more to my grasses. Maybe bring in another color kind of on top. Maybe kind of a, use a little more of this green, and a little more yellow to it, a little more white possibly. Let's see what happens if I bring some of that into the, actually I don't want to lighten them up too much. And I'm going to go ahead and bring a little green into this sky, a little more to make that red pop just a little more. So I kind of start away. So I'm just kind of carving into the tops of those trees. So I took the trees up and now I'm bringing the sky down to where they meet. Some spots might have some softer edges. Some spots might have a little bit crisper edges. Maybe bring a bit of a sky hole in back there. Hard to see probably, but I'm getting down towards my trees down below as well. So now I can use some of this paint that I'm picking up and break those and give them a little more personality as well. And this is kind of where the area where I was talking about being deliberate kind of knowing what I want my brush to do, kind of thinking about what shapes might these trees be? What are they doing back there? I can bring that sky down, punch him in. So my shapes are getting a little tighter. I mean, it was really airy, really breathy before. I contaminated my sky a little bit, so I'll just grab a little paper towel and just wipe that off. Oh, geez, you got to clean this brush. Otherwise, I'll just keep doing it. A lot of people, when they kind of get a little smudge like that, will just kind of try to brush it out. So they just keep moving that little contaminant around and like trying basically to get rid of it by just adding more and more paint to it. But I find it just easier just to get rid of it. Quite the dirty brush going on here. And then come back to it.
Michael, can I ask, in your mind, is this like a sunset towards dusk?
Yep.
Okay. And so the green in the sky then would be kind of what happens to the light far away from the sun. I'm not explaining that very well, but
You're correct. Yes, I'm kind of going towards the sun over here on this side. So I'll be able to kind of bring in some elements that I'll make it a little warmer over here anyways. And I can probably use even a Q-tip and bring back some of that color from underneath and even hint at like a cloud under there. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna bring some cloud. It's hard to see with the glare again. Is that a little better?
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and warm up my sky over here even more. Got kind of brought back some of the little band of yellow. What I'm going to do too is bring up some of the color from my water and give that some form too. I'm going to bring a pink cloud across it, a bright pink one. Because I've got the gray greens in the sky, it should be pretty dramaful. Huh, can even get lighter and brighter. It's right in the glary spot, so it's not really showing up yet, but see if I can change the angle to there. You can kind of see a sky. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that shows it.
So some glowy clouds. Give some warmth. This is sure pink right here, so I'll kind of get some more of my sky color up into there because I want some of that, but not too much. Make sure it doesn't look like blood in the water or anything. I don't want any sharks in my creek. All right, I kind of like that. I may actually come back in and cool some of these colors here, make them a little more blue or so that the red on top actually feels a little more special. I kind of thought by going towards the grays that it may work. But anyways, I'm going to skip to the other guy. Get going on there and see. I'll come back to him, let him sit for a second and breathe. All right. Nice, right? I took a little break. I can kind of come back and judge this guy with some slightly fresh eyes and decide if my shapes are interesting. They're not really interesting, but maybe I can come back in. So this one was going to be reds with more of an ochre sky. And on your screen, is it just reading as red on red on red on red, basically?
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Let's decide what would look cool on that. All right, so I got my big shapes. Now I just need to make something interesting out of them because they are not right yet. I'm gonna bring back a little bit more of my red. So yeah, when things get a little bit out of control, I don't mind wiping away a little bit. I want to give this tree some shape here. What would be interesting shapes? And this guy's just a big, crazy shape. Let's give him maybe some movement. Maybe we'll take off his head, give him there we go.
You're just taking away right now, going back to the
I
green.
had that nice pink underneath there still, so that's pretty lucky. It sucked it up. So I just didn't like the shape that I had going. So what can make it more interesting? So what if I had it kind of leaning off? And I'll just come back in and bring back those colors real quick. I would, again, right, bad design, you can't paint your way out of it. So trying to give myself a sense of design. I was a little too lazy in my design phase, and paying the price for it by having boring trees. Go ahead and bring some of this sky up again. Yeah, see, it's getting a little more interesting already. And I will, these big blasted in areas on this tree here, I will bring those colors from the trees back there in just a little bit.
When you erased that, suddenly the sky showed up on my screen.
Yeah, it's got the nice pink underneath it. Maybe I can. Maybe I can use some of that. But that's what I like, right? It's like sculpting. I added a bunch of clay. Now I can go and kind of bring it away until I get a design I'm happy with. I don't need to move forward. So I will. But I'm finding those shapes much more pleasing. I don't want to overdo it with sky holes and, you know, interesting things, but I definitely don't want to underdo it either. Oh, it's making me feel so much better. I use my heart rate, my blood pressure kind of as I'm looking at paintings. It just kind of lets me know, man, that's not right. That's not interesting. That's not, or that's too interesting. That's too exciting. That's too crazy. I like this tree that I built here, but I think maybe I just got too interesting. All right, I think it's starting to feel better. How about you guys?
Yes.
A little more interesting. All right. Now we can paint again. Yay, instead of just erasing. But it's designing. I'm still in a phase where I can design. It's, you know, you can see that it was painful because I had paint that I had to remove, but it was much easier to do it now than later. So yeah, my design wasn't good.
You're adding paint now, right?
Not quite yet. I'm kind of refining a couple of edges, but I'm just about to.
From the screen, it looks lighter, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I am picking up, I guess, some of the paint that's on here, and just I'm kind of refining my bank just so I know where I want it. All right. So those colors are pretty crazy and kind of boring. So I'm going to go ahead and change that up too a little bit and make this a little more. I'm not sticking to the plan because the plan wasn't working. Please change, evaluate and adjust. Evaluate and adjust. Sometimes I have to tell myself, stick with the plan, stick with the plan. The plan will work. You just got to get to it. You got to get through this ugly phase. But other times I'm like, man, this plan is stupid. Why are you painting from this plan? It's not working. And again, I'm still in the design phase. Even though there's quite a bit of paint on there, I can just cover it up. So I'm going to paint wet into wet. So this sky is about to get more interesting. Again, changing the plan. I had all those nice reds in there. Now I'm changing it around. My sky is going to have reds, blues, and greens. And my ground is going to be more ground-like, not all red. I'll have some of that red showing through. Not sure what's on the screen, sorry. I'm over there mixing colors and you guys can't even see them. I'm looking for some sky colors because I'm going to come in and shape this guy using my
Michael, as you mix up this color, are you taking into account that you're painting into wet that's a different color?
a little bit. I've wiped this area down pretty well. That's where the trees used to be.
That's true.
Chopped them down. I am thinking about kind of what some of that residual color is. Can't remember what my plan was here. I think I've got a little tree that it's not really showing up. Well, that's clear cutting. Getting a little busy there with the sky holes. We'll have to refine those. I'm kind of putting them down as markers. So I've got kind of a pink layer. Let's bring some of that down into the water.
Michael, this is Kim. I have to scoot, but I would appreciate if we have the choice to keep this class's Facebook up so that we can continue to refer to the YouTube links and whatnot.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I get charged for it or anything. It's just a free thing. So I may as well just leave it and build a new one for the next color class, I think. If it's all just us in the next color class, I could just build right on it. And so we have it all continuing to go, but I'll see. Just that way I can leave the links to the videos on there on this page. So that will be my goal. Yeah, I will leave it and then figure out if I need to build a new page for the next class.
Thank you much. See you next week.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Oh man, do those red trees look like they're glowing on top now? That's funny. And again, these are just stupid sky holes. I'll come and make them more interesting and break them up here in a little bit. I'm just kind of putting them down as place savers almost.
This is that point where you're both leading from the sky to the tree and from the tree to the sky. And that's where I successfully blur it by mistake.
Yeah. I'm just trying not to overhit too much. There's some spots I want some blending, and there's some spots where I don't, and it's kind of a by feel thing almost. You know, like the clouds can have softer edges, the tops of trees where they're meeting the sky can have some softer edges, but there's definitely areas where I want crisp edges. And there's also areas where I want big passages of colors. I don't want, you know, so much going on so that other areas can be exciting. If everything is busy with broken brushwork and, you know, if everything's treated the same, nothing's special. And you want to have kind of your wow areas, as it were, your kind of payoff, your reward for somebody looking at your pretty painting.
I thought it was really interesting when you were laying in your original outline of the creek that you drew it with little horizontal lines, which now makes sense, as opposed to just angled, you know, angled vertical lines.
Yeah, that's been an evolution over time that I find that when I kind of put more of the horizontals, I'm sorry, that I can feel it better because it still has angle to it. Sorry, I'm blocking it. Has angles to it, but it's really made up of almost, they're not quite horizontals. They have a slight angle to them, but it just feels more realistic and it wants to lay down. Going back into depth and space a little better when I do that. So yeah, great observation. Sorry I didn't mention that. There's times when you need the angles and they're a little more severe, but I find a lot of times when I just focus on the angles, I make my creek look like it's going up a hill, or defying gravity somehow. And I find this way to be a little more cohesive and works with space a little better.
Maybe there's a perspective class in our future.
Yeah, well, I'll have to do some refreshing on my own, but yeah, I mean, the one above, I'm just going to lean the camera back. It could slightly be going uphill a little bit. I could probably build up my edges, but this one definitely feels like it's quite flat. The worst is when it feels like it's going uphill, downhill, and uphill again. Like I see that sometimes in people's work or even in my own work. And I want to be, very cognizant of that. So my light source now appears to be kind of behind these trees, kind of coming up behind. So I'm just going to go ahead and gray those trees, maybe make them a little purple that are back there, maybe give them a little shape. And I'm not going to paint up to the top, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my Q-tip and I'm going to bring around the tops of that a little bit. So I'm going to bring these cool colors down. Are they showing up? Oh yeah, they are. I'm just gonna so that really pushes those back. It's too much. So what I'm gonna do is simply, instead of repainting them, I'm just gonna take my brush and lightly blend so that that gray color will merge. So Mary, this is a chance where I want to hit it over and over, because I want some of that other color to come through. So you see how that got a little bit, it's not as bright blue as over here, just by simply bringing and using the paint that's underneath it. So, and my light pressure is just a matter of hitting it once, hitting it twice, hitting it a couple times, hitting it with the brush. And that's calming it down. So like I said, I'm going to bring my Q-tips back, and I'm just going to touch the tops, because I'm hopefully got some red there, because my light now is changed. Now it's kind of coming from over here somewhere, or anyways, it's behind the trees. So I can use that. Hopefully I'm not blocking that too much. So there's just a little halo of kind of the red sitting back on there on some of these guys. Yeah, I'll definitely have to come back in and get all of that, make it much more interesting. what I'm going to do is go ahead and lighten the tops of these grasses, and then I'm going to about call it good. Sorry I didn't get in and finish all this, but I think it was important that you saw how I hopefully saw that it wasn't going well in time to save myself some effort. These sky holes are just atrocious. I apologize. That looks ridiculous. Looks like a sea sponge. Or I guess I don't even need to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come across on the tops of these grasses, lighten up the top edges of it, and then I would come in and I would bring in some colors into these trees, allowing some of that red to show through. And then I would bring whatever kind of a light, the colors from the sky reflecting down on tops of whatever color I picked for these trees. I would kind of mix those a little bit to create a little bit of a top edge so the trees don't look just like flat, like they're sitting, you know, cut out there. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? Because yeah, we're way over time already.
Well, back to perspectives again, as Michelle was mentioning, those holes make great sense because that's where you're going to play with color later, isn't
Yes,
it?
exactly right. Yeah, and I'll carve those into much more interesting shapes and everything else. And you know, they're both a little on the simple side, a little on the nose, but you know, that was sure fun for me. What did I paint for a little over an hour on those, on two of them? And I'll try to take a better photo when I get them a little further along. But I had a great time painting it. It's very cathartic almost. It's, you know, my wife does puzzles. I do this. It's kind of like that. And there's nothing, I can't really do anything wrong. I can just, maybe it doesn't feel right and then change it. And again, it's just a great place to experiment with colors. So maybe for you, you know, when I was first starting out, I painted pears like crazy. I think I had 20 or 30 pear paintings just because I love the shape and I love how the light hit them in different ways. So putting a single light source onto pears was great fun for me. Cutting them and slicing them, putting 2 and 3 in a scene. And so I did lots and lots of paintings of pears to the point where they became kind of much more automatic, but I was able to really play with color on the pears, imagining that, you know, they're bright red, bright green, purple, you know, and pears can be basically almost any color anyways. You can go to the grocery store in the right season and find all sorts. So anything, you know, find your thing. It could be just a simple, show back behind my camera. My thing is I've got abstract paintings that I do as well, just experimenting. There's some more over there, my daughter's area. But I just, am I showing right? Yeah, kind of, my daughter actually, for some reason, put this lady's head on there. She liked this lady's head and it matched my abstract painting. So, but anyways, that was just me experimenting with colors and then trying to make something somewhat interesting out of it. Is that kind of pale gray green with kind of a rust red. And so I just try to find ways to experiment, but without spending too much time, I guess. I don't know. Sorry, it's really hard to see. Where's my light? There it is. Yeah, this one was all about gray blues and turquoises, but trying to keep them all within the gray family. And then you can see just a splash of red. Anyways, find your thing. Find something that's comfortable with. It's not like you have to make a full commitment. I'm going to come back over to the other camera here. Don't make every painting a finished painting. Experiment and play and make marks. You know, get a book of canvas paper, or just I went to the frame shop, and actually OSA has a whole bunch too they'll give you. It's just mat boards. The frame shop will have all their little spare mat boards, and then just gesso a bunch of them and have these little surfaces. I haven't changed the camera, have I? Nope. Yeah, hold on one second. changing back again. Like here's like just a piece of cardboard and then taped off in the middle, and just all these upside down. All these just different experiments on there. They're worthless, but they're fun. Here's another one where we just taped off in the middle and just did a bunch of little experiments. This was just a piece of board at a chop shop, and they were just extra boards, so I just grabbed them, gessoed them. This was experimenting with translucent blues to see what happens. So when the light hits them, what effects happen to the paint. Just different landscape design ideas, but abstracting them. Same with this one. So this is actually all based on the same photo, all 4 of those, but with just different ideas for each one. And just seeing what happens with the super hot colors, but painted thicker and more transparent, what happens when they hit the light. Just play and experiment and try things. Don't make every painting about a finished painting. Just, those are great to have, but if that's all you're concentrating on is making successful finished paintings, your growth is going to be unbelievably stunted compared to the person that just plays and experiments and then approaches a painting to finish. So make like every 3rd, 4th, 5th thing you do about finishing the painting if you want to. You don't need to. Because I understand that we want to challenge ourselves and we want to hang something on our walls or give something to our kids or whatever it is you want to do with your paintings. But we're too scared when we want it to be good to do the big learning that needs to be done. We're too scared to take the risks. I see Shelly's up there painting. Fantastic, Shelly. What I do too is I will have my painting on the canvas and I will have a little thing on the side, a little panel on the side where I can experiment with brush strokes. I can put down my colors. I can do that. So you can be doing an experimental painting and your real painting at the same time. There's nothing wrong. You just saw me do it, 2 paintings at one time. There's nothing wrong with doing that. My daughter, the commission she's working on, she wasn't sure if she had clear communication with the lady. And so she just did 3 paintings for her instead and let her pick a favorite one. How pleased was that lady? Very pleased. So pleased that she ordered 2 more. And now they have a line of communication. So my daughter's business shutting down. She was a waitress. She's making way more money now and has time to do it she works this Saturday. They're opening back up, but go ahead. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much. Please, any last questions before I let you go?
A great big thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
And I will try to post a picture of these if I get more finished. They may just be done where they are if I don't kind of like them, but I think they have some possible potential. And we'll keep the page live. I'll post this video as soon as I get it recorded over to YouTube. Please let me know if you have any questions about this class or the next color class, and I will try to get information out about that in the next couple of days so that if you need to do any shopping or anything else. But the color palette will mostly be the same as the one I sent to you guys, my supply list. Phew, I have to be done teaching. I can't even swallow anymore. My throat's so dry. Thank you guys. I really appreciate everything. And it really meant a lot to me that you guys kept coming back week after week and did such beautiful work.
Thanks, Michael.
Take care.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. It's great seeing you.
Michael.
Bye, everybody. It's great to meet you, Susan. All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Way to paint, Shelly. That's awesome.
Thanks. I'll be watching you from Cheyenne, Wyoming next week, so I won't be able to paint.
Oh, lucky you. I'll try to sneak some turquoise colors in there for you.
Woohoo, thank you.
Into the painting. Awesome. Have a great time out there. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Bye.